How many have you done for the record, Frank?
Uh, I've been selected 14 times. Two of them I couldn't make because I had conflicting paid engagements. So I've got 12 in the can, and number 13 coming up in February.
So we are back on Red Circle Talk, and I am super honored to have the record holder for most TEDx talks, my man, Frank King. Frank, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. Actually, I'm in, wait a minute. Oh, Portland, Oregon.
Very nice. So it's like morning time over there for you, huh?
Yeah, I've been up for hours, man. I'm a radically early riser. I've already worked out, had breakfast, taken a nap. So,
What does your morning routine look like, Frank, if you don't mind sharing a little bit? What does your morning routine look like?
I brace yourself. Uh, my alarm goes off at 1 a. I get up, do a double shot of espresso, go back to bed, lie there in the dark for about an hour, just letting my mind wander hither and yon. It's part of my creative process. If you said to me, Frank, look, I need a tagline for my podcast, I'd go, okay, I need to sleep on it. So I'd go to bed. Next morning, I'd wake up and I'd just lie there waiting. And oftentimes, something will, one of my clients is talking about how awful online dating is. And it was a Zoom, like a group coaching call, and it was mostly women. And all of a sudden, everybody's going, me too, me too, me too, me too. So I said, I think you need to write a book, an anthology of, bad online dating experiences. So I went to bed and I thought there's got to be a good name for that. I woke up, I texted her at 2 a.m, mismatch.com. She texted me back. She goes, A, you woke me up, you bastard. And B, did you think that up in your sleep? Yes, as a matter of fact, I did. So out of bed at 2, do my shower and shave. Then I'm on the treadmill for 30 minutes wearing a 72-pound weight vest because I'm training for my 7th bodybuilding contest coming up next June. And then I stretch and do my weight work, resistance training, bands, barbells, whatever. And then breakfast. And then I meditate twice a day as part of my self-care plan. So it's a guided meditation, about 30 minutes, kind of a nap. And then after the nap, up and at the computer and start my work, trying to book speeches on suicide prevention. Also trying to round up clients for my coaching program, TEDx, and how to make money speaking.
What time do you get to bed?
I try to get to bed by 6:30 in the evening.
There it is. There it is. That's the hack.
Yes. Well, I was in radio for a while, and I actually got up a little later than that. And people would say it's hard to get up at 3:30 in the morning. I said, no. The hard part is? Hard part's getting in bed at 6:30, 7 o'clock, because there's always something to do. I mean, I don't know. I did a morning show for about a year and a half and got fired because there are two kinds of people in radio: people who've been fired, people who are going to be fired. And I had no idea how tired I was until I got fired. You just kind of walk around in a daze, not realizing just exactly how exhausted you are. It was fun, but man, it was exhausting.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with me because I find myself, I'm a pretty early riser. I get up at 5 a.m., but I don't do the go to sleep early thing. I haven't developed that discipline to like just get to bed early. I feel like I'm trying to squeeze the life out of the day, but I think it kind of impacts me sometimes. So I appreciate you sharing that. So Frank, folks want to know, man, first of all, let's just talk about your first TED Talk, like what led you to the stage, what was your process like? And then maybe we can just kind of talk a little bit about your journey to be the record holder for most TEDx talks. So just tell me about your first experience with TEDx.
Well, I have to back up a little bit. I began my on-stage career as a comedian day after Christmas 1985. I went on the road with my girlfriend, now my wife of 37 years. I said to her that December, I'm going on the road to be a stand-up comedian. You want to come along for the ride? And, I'm thinking she's going to go, oh, hell no. And she goes, yeah. So we gave up our jobs, our apartment, jumped in my tiny little Dodge Colt. And we were on the road 2,629 nights in a row nonstop, 7 years and change. Worked with Foxworthy and Ron White, Ellen DeGeneres, Paula Poundstone, Dana Carvey, Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey kept me from getting my ass kicked one day at a YMCA in Birmingham, Alabama. But that's another story. But then when I came off the road, that's when I did radio for about 18 months. And when radio ended, the comedy club thing was winding down. So I jumped to corporate comedy. So I did comedy after lunch, after dinner at conventions. And then the recession hit, and that dropped off 80% overnight. And we lost everything in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And that's when I learned what the barrel of my gun tasted like, literally. Spoiler alert, I did not pull the trigger, which usually gets a nervous laugh from the audience. A friend of mine came up recently. Yeah, exactly. Like, should we be laughing at this? Yeah, well, to make sure they know it's supposed to be funny, a friend of mine came up after my keynote recently. He never heard me say I did not pull the trigger. So he said to me, hey, man, how come you didn't pull the trigger? I go, hey, man, could you try to sound slightly less disappointed? So that's where the humor is in the topic. Now, I had always wanted to make a living and a difference. Have content for the audience, takeaways, learning objectives, teach them something. Had no idea how. However, after that close call with suicide, the fact I live with 2 mental illnesses, the fact there are more nuts in my family than in squirrel turd, I decided that I could keynote on suicide prevention if I got some training, which I did. Now, second hurdle, who's going to take me serious after 2.5 decades of stand-up? My wife said, do a TEDx talk. I said, what's a TEDx talk? Just happened to get an invite to apply to a TEDx in Vancouver, British Columbia that week. So I applied and I got it. And I did it on suicide prevention. And that let everybody in the speaking world know that Frank can do something serious with humor. Because people ask me, was TEDx always on your bucket list? Hell no. I didn't even know it. I did not even know what it was until my wife told me to do one. And then I did that one. And I guess the topic is hot enough that 2 TEDx events called and said, do you have any more talks, different talks on mental health? Between you and me, I didn't at the time, but of course I went, yeah, of course I do. So I created 2 more, and then I just got in the habit of applying, and I apply. That's what I tell people. Look, I got clients who came to me and said, Frank, I applied a couple times around here, didn't get it, gave up. Well, there's part of the problem. You have to apply. There are 200 plus TEDx talks in the US and Canada. And I've had a client get it on the first try. I got mine on the first try. I've had a client didn't get it till the 90th try.
Wow.
But the average is probably 2 or 3 dozen, maybe. So you just have to keep applying. And people go, I want to do one near me. I've never done a TEDx that I didn't have to fly to. So, you need to be ready to, and you have to pay your own way. TEDx doesn't pay you. You don't pay them. You got to pay your own way. Now, it pays off in other ways, credibility, visibility, it's a great marketing tool if you use it right. So that's how I got my first one and my second and my third. And then my fourth, I applied for it and they liked the title and subtitle so much, I didn't have to audition. And I tell my clients, look, that's the deal. The application is not really an application for a TEDx. It's a marketing pitch to the selection committee. They get 200 or 300 applications. You have got to get their attention. You've got to have a hook, some reason for them to continue reading when they, to slow the scroll as they're going through all those applications. It was called Suicide: The Secret of My Success, which is counterintuitive. Dead Man Talking, which is a play on Dead Man Walking, the book and the movie. And they called up and said, no, man, we love the title, subtitle idea so much. Come on down and do it. My fifth one, same thing. The title of the fifth one was Mental Health and the Orgasm, Treat Your Depression Single-Handedly. And I got a call.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Well, bear in mind, I knew not every TEDx event would like that. And 15 turned me down. But I knew the one that said yes would really like it. And they did. It's the only one I've ever gotten a standing ovation for.
Wow.
The tagline is, I love my iPhone, but it's my second favorite handheld device.
That's good. Listen, I want to unpack some of that, Frank. So
Yeah.
so many of the folks that I meet, and I've only done one TEDx talk. How many have you done for the record, Frank?
I've been selected 14 times. 2 of them I couldn't make because I had conflicting paid engagements. So I've got 12 in the can, and number 13 coming up in February.
Very nice, very nice. So one thing that I come across when I speak to people who want to get on a TEDx stage is that there's always a barrier with the location. So unpack that a little bit. You said you've always had to fly to the event and you always have to invest in it. Talk to the people who are like, oh, I'm not going to apply to that one because it's not local. Because I don't think they fully understand that folks rarely get their first TEDx, spot in their hometown. Can you talk to the folks about that a little bit?
Yes, the guy who recently got it on the first try, it was a new client. It was our first time talking about TEDx. And I send out a list of TEDx applications, an Excel spreadsheet of every TEDx, US, Canada, and globally, and a list of TEDx application links where the window's open right now. So we log on, and we see this TEDx Jefferson U University, and he goes, "Man, I went there." And then we look, and the deadline had passed the day before. I go, "Look, Raja, let's apply. It's Sunday. It's Easter weekend. Maybe they won't notice when they open their email on Monday that it didn't come in on Saturday. It came in on Sunday. I mean, would you really look that closely?" So as luck would have it, I don't know if that was the case, but the case was they extended the deadline anyway. And because he'd gone there and it was right around the corner from where he lives, he got it on his first try. But that's the only time any of my clients have gotten anything close to home. It's, the odds are just not in your favor unless, let's say, some of the TEDx talks, they'll say TEDx Duke. I've applied for TEDx Duke a couple times. I've gotten auditions. But what they really want, alumni, students, faculty. So if you are, you went to Duke, faculty or staff, or you live in the area, perhaps, then you got a better shot than I do. Some of them flat out say, "Look, we just want students, faculty," and so let's say you went to that university. You graduated, you're an alum. Then you got a good shot of getting that TEDx. But that aside, if you don't have any connection with the university or the town, they often ask you in the application, what is your connection to Denver? Or what is your connection to Charlotte? You don't have to have one necessarily. And I'm always funny when I don't have one. What's your connection to Phil? Love the Jaguars. Go Jags. In hopes they'll laugh and go, okay, fine. I just think you just really reduce your odds if you're unwilling to travel. And if you use the TEDx as a marketing tool and you use it wisely, it is a differentiator in your speaking career. Let's say they're looking at 3 speakers, and you have a TEDx and the other 2 don't. I think you're going to get a harder look than not guaranteed. I can't draw a straight line from a TEDx to a speech, booking, but I can't believe that because all of mine are on mental health or something related, so they all build my brand as the mental health comedian. I think as a speaker, you should have a TEDx that you brand with, a podcast that you brand with, a keynote, and ideally, the title of your keynote is something near the title of your podcast, near the title of your TEDx talk. So there's 3 branding items that you to build your brand, because I think as a speaker, and you didn't ask this, but this is central to my coaching. You need to pick a lane, a speaking lane. Mine is suicide prevention, period, paragraph. And so that's my lane. I want to become the thought leader expert in that lane. The long game is, and it's starting to happen, that when somebody goes looking for a suicide prevention speaker, they don't go looking for just anybody. They come to me. They seek me out. I'm doing an engagement tomorrow. They found me. I mean, that I don't know if it's SEO or somebody saw me someplace else. And the one I've got booked November 6th, last minute booking, November 6th, they saw me at an event. Somebody in their selection committee saw me earlier this year and said nice things about me. So it's beginning to happen that they're not just looking for any suicide prevention speaker. They're beginning to come looking for me. And my goal for you would be, I'm a mental health comedian. So let's say you were the mental health comedian and somebody had seen you and we need to somebody talk about suicide prevention. Well, there's a guy, mental health comedian. Just put in mental health comedian and speaker in Google, and he'll come up. That's what I'm after. They can't remember your name, but they remember, something like your brand. So you come up when they type in that and speaker.
I love that, Frank. And I think so many new speakers and aspiring TEDx speakers have limitations around the idea of niching down to a topic because they feel like maybe they'll eliminate the size of their audience. Where I try to tell people all the time, like, if you can really hone in on that topic and that idea, you'll be the go-to person for it. So I love that you framed it that way. Let's talk a little bit about the habit of applying. So you said that, and that it struck a chord with me because it's one thing to apply, get denied, and I tried, right? I didn't mean to rhyme there, but I did. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but I did, right? But talk to me about making it a habit, and then if you can share any best practices or tips around that headline and how to make your applications stand out in a crowded room.
Yeah, I think what I'll do, I'll email you the master list of all the TEDx talks, US, Canada, and globally. Now you're gonna see the list, and the list, it all has 2024 on there. But if it was in May of 2024, if it still exists, it's going to be in May of 2025. And you always want to start looking at that one about 4 to 6 months ahead of time because that's the run up. You go to their website and see when they open that application window. So I'll send you the master list, and I'll send you a list of the ones that are. I got a list of about 24 right this minute where the window's open. So yeah, if you get that list, if one of your listeners gets that list, for God's sakes, don't wait because one of them's got maybe a deadline of October 31st or something. And by the way, here's a tip for your listeners. Let's say they say the deadline is October 31st. They can shut it down October 30th if they've got all the speakers they need. So never think you can push that deadline. I didn't know that till this year. What do you mean they closed the window? So the question was, I just went off on a tangent.
Just best practices for applications. You talked about the idea of applying a habit. So just talk to folks about some best practices, specifically around ways to make your application stand out.
Okay, as for a habit, we have a coaching program. It's called TEDx Launchpad. We guarantee you a TEDx in 90 days or your money back. Now, the way we can guarantee that is you have to do your homework and we have to see the receipts. And we believe that if you apply for 2 TEDx talks a day, that would be 5 days a week, 10 a week for 90 days. What's that? 3 months. So 40 a month. You apply for 120 of the 200 plus in the US. You're going to land a TEDx talk. So I think best practice is apply on average for 2 a day. And here's the thing, with AI now, you can cobble together the answers to the most frequently asked questions. For example, give us a 3-sentence summary. Tell us why you're the person to do this. Tell us why this topic. Tell us why now. Why anybody would care. So you got those answers, and then you can put them in AI and put the theme of the talk into AI and say, now, take these answers and make them relevant to the theme of this TEDx. So it will customize your answers to that TEDx. Same thing applies with speaking. If you're pitching yourself for a conference an event for an association. I put in, give me a 2-paragraph summary, 3 learning objectives, 1 takeaway, and a paragraph on why Frank King is the best person to do this, and make it relevant to. And I put in the URL of the association and the URL of the association event. So it's very much customized to what I can do to solve their problems. So I would say twice a day, 5 days a week for 90 days, and you'll find yourself, and if we can't make that happen for you, and you got the receipts, we get copies, you get your money back.
Frank, you are out here dropping full on gems. Like that is I especially like the AI piece, because I think so many folks, especially, folks who are maybe a little more mature, are afraid of AI technology and fear it so much, and are not really leveraging the possibilities and also just streamlining their process. I think that's a powerful gem, and I think that might be the first time in these interviews that I've conducted that someone has recommended leveraging AI for these applications. So that's powerful. I love that.
Oh God, it's made on the conference side, the event side, I can crank out 2 conference applications, either a speaker proposal or a marketing email, an hour, and customize, where it would have taken me who knows how long in the past. Yeah, and there's a couple things. There's a subscription service that I belong to called speakerbusiness.club, speakingbusiness.club. And the guy that runs that has designed some AI tools specifically for speakers. He and his partner wrote a book on getting booked at association events and fed that into this AI tool. So it's faster than chat when it comes to strictly on getting booked to speak at conferences for associations. And you can put your information in there and go, give me a list of 10 associations I'd be a perfect fit for. Boom. Okay, now give me a list of their events. Boom. Oh, God. It's just made the whole process far more streamlined and fast. So, and I send my clients 100 speaker leads a week. And you can get those from myspeakerleads.com. Myspeakerleads.com. $20 a month. Myspeakerleads.com.
Very nice.
And now not all of them pay, so what you do is you sort and filter. In the O column on the Excel spreadsheet, the O column, description of the event. And usually the last sentence says, have you used paid speakers in the past? Have you used Speakers Bureau? Or they'll say, we'll cover your registration. Let's cover this.
Yeah. That's good, Frank. So now we got folks applying. So they're applying now. They're on your list, or they joined you and they're receiving all of these resources to get them onto the TEDx stage. They land a TEDx talk. Talk to me a little bit about your preparation process, research process, writing, and also for your speeches, any tips for memorization? Do you memorize? Do you use bullet points? Talk to me about the actual preparation of the speech.
Well, can we take a step back to the middle piece of the process, which is the audition?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, because what you're after is, I've had 2 out of 12 or 2 out of 14 where I didn't have to audition that, but that's rare. I mean, that's not, so your chances are you're going to get an audition. The way it works is this: you apply. 2 things happen. 3 things. 1 of 3 things is going to happen. 1, they turn you down. We're not saying you suck, but 2, they want to see a 5-minute overview on video. Usually they ask for like a 2-minute video with the app, where they're saying, we like the idea, but we want to know more. Give us a 5-minute video. Tip: if they say 2-minute video or 5-minute video, do not give them 1 second more. They are looking for people who can follow orders. I had a client of mine, it was a 60-second video. He gave him 68, blown out before they read another word. Same thing with, give us 3 sentences, don't give them 4. Give us 250 characters, don't give them 251. Because if I'm on the selection committee and I got 300 apps to go through, I'm not looking for the first reason to give you an audition. I'm looking for the first reason not to. Throw you in the no pile, go to the next one, because I got a lot of these things to go through. So I've got a whole speech called 6 Things You Can Do to Kill Your Chances of Landing a TEDx. But we can talk about those 6 in a minute. But in the audition, let's say you get the audition. They're almost always going to ask you, oh man, that's a great idea. Now, what are you going to teach the audience? You need to have that on a document somewhere, bullet pointed. Great. What are the takeaways? Again, you need to be able to just rattle them off. I had a seasoned speaker call me. Frank, I got the audition and I got blown out. How'd you get blown out? They asked me for learning objectives. I go, and? He goes, what's a learning objective? I'm thinking, how long have you been fucking speaking? So don't get blown out on a technicality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so be ready because they'll probably ask you. They also may ask you, when did this idea occur to you? And here's something that a lot of people who want to do a TEDx they stumble on this. One is on the app it says, who do you want to nominate? They don't tell you can always nominate yourself. So that's a way they can keep the number of people who apply down. So make sure you always, you can nominate yourself. That's fine. So anyway, yeah. So at the audition, make sure you're prepared for those questions. They almost always ask, and they'll ask you, are you willing to work with a coach? And even though I don't need a coach, and even though some of the coaches I've had sucked out loud, I always say, oh yeah, absolutely. So now to the TEDx talk itself. I tell my students, nowadays, TEDx events, many of them are limiting the talk to 8 to 12 minutes, 8 to 12 minutes. Stated in the TEDx rules is 18 minutes max. But they want shorter speech, higher impact. But I tell my students, look, don't write me an 8 to 12 minute TEDx. Write me a TEDx. I don't care if it's 25 minutes. Most of my first drafts are 25 minutes. Then we'll back out. I don't want you to cramp your creative style trying to create a really short speech. Just write me a speech, and we will get it down to the amount of time they give us for the speech. And when you go, you can always. They're not gonna. It's not like what is it? What's it? The Apollo, where the clown comes out with
Sandman.
Yeah, exactly. And they like that. They're not gonna drag you off stage if you go over time. Yeah, exactly. So if it ends up being, it needs to be that many minutes in rehearsal with them. But if you go over in the event, don't stress. Now, I tell my students, because almost every TEDx talk, and I'm now representing something called Speak Event, which is the number one TEDx competitor. And those people and most TEDx events say this: memorize your speech. Here's what I say to my clients: nod, okay, and don't do it, because it then becomes a recitation, not a conversation. Now, if that's the way you operate, if you feel like you need to memorize it, okay, fine. But most people that I work with really don't want to memorize the speech. I say memorize the outline. Macro ideas, and I write on my hand. I put the Roman numerals and one word on my hand, because you can't have notes at a TEDx. But if you watch my TEDx talks, every now and then you'll see me do this. Covered it. Oh. And the audience starts laughing. And people of a certain age get this joke. It's my Palm Pilot. The younger people staring at me, and I go, look, younger people, Google it. So I would say memorize the outline. Yeah, I was working with a speaker the other day, and she's going through this speech. And I knew she was good. She'd given multiple speeches. She worked at Amazon. She was head of safety at Amazon. She managed like 35,000 people. She'd given speeches everywhere. And it was horrible. And I said, Marla, what the hell was that? And I said, did you memorize that? She goes, yeah, I remember. I go, fuck that. It's your story. You know it. So she put down the notes. She did it for me again, completely different. She goes, well, you're right. I know my story. And then when she performed it, I'm watching her, and she's animated. You can tell she's not trying to figure out what the next line was. You can toss in an aside. I did a TED Talk where my closer was something I hadn't even planned at all. It just occurred to me. And I did it. And it's the one thing when people see that TEDx talk, they mention, oh man, I love that close about Sisyphus and rolling the rock up a hill. I just threw that in. It just occurred to me in the moment. So yeah, it's when the one I did on mental health and the orgasm, I knew there was 15% of that talk that the committee was going to take issue with. So when I did my dress rehearsal the night before, I only did 85% of my talk because I didn't want to get in a fist fight because I've been doing this a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me a coach and they were micromanaging me. Finally, I said to them, look, this is your first TEDx talk. This is my fifth. You're trying to teach Michael Jordan how to do jump shots. I got this. And my coach told the committee, she said, I know Frank, just from one conversation. He will do what I ask. He will change what I ask him to change. He will fix what I tell him to fix. But I got news for you. When you put that microphone in his hand, he's going to do whatever the fuck he wants to. And she was absolutely right. And one of the committee members who didn't like me at all, didn't like my topic, didn't think I belonged there, came up afterwards. And this takes a lot of guts on her part. She goes, Frank, I didn't think you belonged here. I didn't like your topic. I thought it was, But I got to tell you something. I have never been so happy to be so wrong. Because I've been doing this a long time. I know the speak event. When I did that, I did one. They rewrote my first 3 paragraphs. And it's a story I've told many times. So when they said, when I turned in my final draft, I put their 3 paragraphs in there. When I got on stage, I threw those the fuck out and I did my 3 paragraphs because I knew it would work. And it did. So, yeah. So just nod when they ask you to do something and do what your gut tells you should be doing.
I love that. That's good, Frank. Well, listen, Frank, we're going to wrap up. But before we do that, I want to make sure folks know how they can get in contact with you, how they can maybe learn more about your coaching services, and then anything you're working on that you want to share.
Okay. So when I decided to codify my TEDx, and I've got TEDx Launchpad and the 6-figure speaker. So it's a combination program. So I'm in the living room. And I'm just like this. What am I going to call it? What URL? What domain name? And my wife hears me. And she goes, and she doesn't know anything about the internet. She, it's not her, bless her heart. Thank God. She goes, what about howtomakemoneyspeaking.com? I'm thinking, yeah, that's going to be available in 2020, whatever. So I went to GoDaddy. I typed in howtomakemoneyspeaking.com. Son of a bitch. I got chills. It's available. So go to howtomakemoneyspeaking.com. Because, if my wife knew more about the internet, she would have never suggested that. Because that's just, that's gone, long gone. So that's my, and so I'm working on TEDx number 13. I'm waiting to find out the theme. I always try to work in some mental health, mental illness stuff, regardless of the theme. So I'm waiting on the theme so I can figure out how I'm going to wedge my, just a little bit about mental health, mental illness into the talk. That's my current project. Tomorrow I'm speaking to the Washington State Patrol. I don't know if you know this, but first responders, police, firefighters, and so forth, more die by suicide than die in the line of duty. So this will be my second speech for the Washington State Patrol in a month. And then there's one in November at a refinery, mining, extraction, whatever, that has one of the highest rates of suicide as well. So those are my, and then I'll be back in Ohio for a little fundraiser I'm doing for a fraction of what I charge because they called and asked, and I haven't got anything booked, and it's a good cause, and they're paying me, but it's it's not. I mean, I'm not going to lose money. I'll make a little money, so.
All right, cool.
And working on a book.
Oh, nice. What's the book about?
As I mentioned, I do bodybuilding. It's hard to believe, but I do. It's called True Natural Bodybuilding. They polygraph you beforehand. They urine test you after. Make sure you're not doing steroids. And I've said to them, look, if I'm doing steroids, somebody's ripping me off. But you can't tell when I got my clothes on. I got like 8% body fat. Underneath this, I'm ripped. But you can't tell. So someday I'm going to write a book called Undress for Success, Look Good Naked.
You're the first person who said that under my clothes I'm ripped. That was good. Oh man, Frank, this has been an absolute honor and pleasure. This is our first season doing the show, and we're asking people if we come back for a season 2, would you join us for another episode next year?
Yeah, because you know what we can talk about. Is your audience aspiring speakers, aspiring speakers?
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause we can talk about how do you get booked at colleges? That's an episode. How do you get booked on cruise ships? That's an episode. So, there are lots of ways to make money in the speaking business: colleges, cruise ships, and colleges, cruise ships, and I can talk. We can talk about why you should be looking to get booked at associations, not corporations. Why an association engagement? Because the audience is full of corporations with the same problem you're trying to solve. So we can talk about getting booked at associations, getting booked at colleges, getting booked on cruise ships. Each one could be an episode, or we could combine whatever works for you guys.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait until the next time. Frank, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure, man.